Okay, hello. Great to have you. This is a Bay Area Harp Academy workshop, and we have invited Julia Johnson to come and present for us. And so, Julia, if you would love to introduce yourself and tell us what you're about to share.
Sure, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be doing this presentation. I will be moving to the Bay Area actually this fall to study at SFCM with Catherine Siochi. So I'm super excited to kind of dip my toe into the Bay Area. So I just barely finished my master's at the Indiana University Jacobs School of Music. And actually, on the next slide, I have a little bit more about me. Perfect. Okay. So, a little bit about me. I'm from Utah originally, and I have been in Indiana for the past 5 years, finishing up my bachelor's and my master's, both in harp performance. I transferred to music school actually after doing 1 year at a school in Utah. I was studying biology. I didn't know that I wanted to be a harpist. I had always loved harp. I started playing when I was 4 years old, actually from encouragement from my mom. My mom is a professional violinist, and she loved the harp as an instrument when she was growing up and kind of throughout college. And so I'm the oldest girl in my family, and my mom was like, wouldn't it be fun if you played the harp? So she got me a small lever harp when I was 4, which honestly I feel like was a little bit too young for me. I wish I would have been a little bit older. We definitely butt heads, my mother and I. For a couple years, she let me quit. And then when I was like 8 or 9, I was like, okay, maybe I'll try this again. And I played just throughout junior high and high school. And then thought, I don't really know if I can be a music major. That seems kind of scary. What do you even do as a music major? How do you make a career out of this? So I started college as a biology major, and I really liked it, but during that year, I kind of realized like music is what I love to do. It's what I feel like I can contribute to the world. And so I started looking into places to transfer to. And I ended up in Indiana mostly because of my mom, actually. I didn't know a lot about music schools. I never did any like summer festivals. I did a lot of competitions growing up. I soloed with some like orchestras in Utah at their like youth concerto competitions, which was great. My teacher encouraged me to do that. But I never did like I did AHS. I applied for AHS 2 times before I got in. I got in for the first time in 2019. It was in North Carolina, and I've done it every year, 2 years since then. So I'm a 4-time finalist and prize winner with AHS, which is so fun. I would totally encourage young students to at least learn that repertoire. It helped me progress a lot repertoire wise. It opened my eyes to what kind of music there is out there. And it also, the 2 years that I tried out for it and didn't get in, I still learned a lot. It was a very positive experience just learning the repertoire. So if anyone is out there thinking like, oh, like, I don't know if I want to compete, like, should I learn this repertoire? Like, do it. There's really nothing that you can lose from learning the repertoire. Anyway, so I transferred to Indiana after a year of being in college. I started out as a harp major, and I had enough generals done that it only took me another 3 years to finish my undergrad here. And during that time, I also got a certificate of entrepreneurship, which the university offered. I went to a university. I know that sometimes there's conservatories and universities, and I have another slide about that, like maybe what's best for you. But I kind of wanted the university experience in my undergrad, and I was grateful I did that because I got to do a certificate as well, which, as a musician, sometimes you wear multiple hats. You can play with an orchestra, you can be a teacher, you can do this. And so entrepreneurship was something I was interested in, just to kind of, figure out like, how do you run your business, and your business is you as a harpist. So then after I graduated with my undergrad, I knew I wanted to do a little bit more. I wasn't quite sure exactly what I wanted to do as a harpist yet. And so I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll do some more school, kind of, spend a little bit more time with time available to practice and get better. I ended up staying at Indiana because of multiple reasons. One of them was I got a teaching position, which covered tuition, and then I also got a stipend from that. I also thought, I've only been here for 3 years. I feel like there's a little bit more that I want to get from this amazing music school, very large music school. So I was happy I stayed. I got to teach for the past 2 years. But then during my master's program, I kind of realized how much I want to be a teacher, but then also an orchestral harpist. Coming into college, I know that there's a lot of like youth orchestras out there. I personally never did one of those. That's something that I might have wished if I had known. Maybe I would have looked into doing that more. But so I came into college with, I think I knew like the Nutcracker cadenza, and that was all that I knew about playing in an orchestra. And I remember being absolutely terrified. Freshmen at IU play with bands. And I remember going into rehearsals just being like so nervous. I'm like, I don't want to mess up. And then I would like lose my place and have to like worry about where I was. I didn't really know a lot about like, finding your next cue or like listening to people around you to kind of help you know. But that's all stuff that I learned very well throughout my 5 years of being here. So after finishing my master's, I knew I wanted to kind of go the orchestra route, take auditions, and teach as much as I could. So that made me interested in SFCM, especially with Catherine Siochi. I felt like she was very on top of everything. I mean, she's obviously an amazing harpist, but I feel like she was someone I had looked up to for a long time. And so I applied and got in. So I'll be doing like the professional study certificate in the fall. It's a 1 year, maybe 2 year program. You can extend it. But that's how I ended up moving to San Francisco. I'm also currently the principal harpist with the Columbus, Indiana Philharmonic. It's a position I won 3 years ago during my undergrad, which I'll talk more about that too, but was a great opportunity. I'll be leaving that orchestra. But then, yeah, I've also done AHS, which is a great competition. I'd recommend that to any young harpist in college or before college. It's a great way to make friends, to push yourself, to give yourself a deadline to learn music. And then I also participated in the USA International Harp Competition, which if you don't know what that is, it's a competition that was founded in 1989 by Suzanne McDonald, who is an amazing harpist. She just recently passed away last year, but her legacy was at Indiana University. This is where she kind of ended up in teaching for a long time, and she founded this competition. And I worked for this competition in 2022. I learned a lot about it. And then I kind of got that bug that was like, wait, I want to do this. And so for the next 3 years, I learned the repertoire and competed in 2025, which was last year. So that's a little bit about me. Anyways, I wanted to talk today about the experience of being a collegiate harpist, kind of the things that I think went well, the things that I wish I would have known. And for anyone that's thinking like, maybe I want to do a career in music, thinking like, should I do college? So yeah, that's a little bit about what I'm going to talk about today. So first thing, why study harp in college? Do I really need a harp degree? This is something that I thought about, like why should I go to music school? Why should I spend money learning the harp? Do you need it? I know there's harpists out there that are, gigging and freelancing. You see them on like TikTok and Instagram, and you're like, wow, like you didn't never go to college. And they're doing really well. But here's a couple of reasons why, for me personally, getting a harp degree made the most sense. So the first thing is access to professional knowledge. When you're in music school, you hopefully have found a teacher that you think aligns with your goals, and you'll have weekly meetings or lessons with this professor, which is great because it's just, they'll keep you motivated, they'll keep you accountable. A lot of the times they know more than you do about repertoire, especially, what pieces can you play, and they'll also know about opportunities for you, competitions or professional work. Sometimes they're getting asked to do work that they then pass on to you. Which was very important to me in my undergrad and my master's. Another thing that's great about music school is unlimited time to practice and improve your skills. There's no better time. You're never gonna have time like you do in music school. Yes, you're busy with classes and rehearsals, but then, the end of your day, you're like, I have 4 hours that are free, I can practice. And as a working professional, you often don't have 4 hours a day that you can just, sit down and become better at playing the harp. So that was another thing that I was like, okay, it's just dedicated time to get better. Orchestral experience. This was really important to me. I graduated from IU, which is a very large music school. There's about 1,500 students here. We have 5 orchestras, 3 bands. There's like 3 full opera productions per semester. There's a new music ensemble. There's composers that are always asking you to play their things. That it just would be really hard to get this kind of experience if you weren't in school. Um, Another thing that I really liked is, like I said, I didn't come into college with a lot of orchestra experience. And college is a learning time. The first semester that I was in the band, I made mistakes, and I was like, wow, like, how come I don't know how to do this? How come I can't count? How come I can't, like I was even preparing beforehand. I wasn't going in unprepared. As a harpist, you really can't go into rehearsals unprepared. But it's okay to make mistakes in music school. You oftentimes have a lot more rehearsals than you would in a professional setting, maybe 2 weeks or even 3 before a concert. Whereas in a professional setting, you might have 2 rehearsals and you have to go from there. So it's okay to make mistakes in music school. It's your time to learn, to try things. And if you make mistakes, you can fix them. Broader musical education. Another thing that's nice about music school is you will get music theory, ear training, aural skills, music history, and that just will help you become better at playing the harp. I really especially appreciated pedagogy. I took that in my undergrad, and I just learned. I remember another thing that was kind of shocking when I came to music school is going to group master classes, and someone would play a piece and my teacher would be like, oh, who's played this before? Who knows this piece? And everyone's raising their hands, and I'm like, I don't know this piece, because my knowledge was just, my harp studio that I had back in Utah and the pieces that those people were playing. And I realized very quickly on that I didn't know a lot of the canonical repertoire, but also other pieces that I found in the library or pieces that I played with orchestra. Just didn't know about those before coming to college, which was really cool. And then connections, I think, is probably, if I could say, the biggest, most important thing that I learned in music school was how to make connections. So when you're at music school, you're surrounded by a bunch of people that might share the same goals as you. They might be different. Some people might want to go to arts administration. They might want to play with orchestras. They might want to do chamber or Hollywood, New York City, gigging. There's a lot of options, but people are at least motivated and they're good at what they do. And those are going to be your peers. Those are going to be your colleagues in the future. You need to make friends in music school. I think that, you have to be good at playing the harp if you want to be a professional harpist, but you also have to be a nice person. You have to be easy to work with. I would much rather work with someone who hasn't won first place at every competition, and they're really mean. Or I'd much rather work with someone who is nice and who is willing to take criticism and work with that. Your studio mates you don't need to compare yourself to them. I mean, it's really easy to. I know that music school, one of the detriments is that you come in as a freshman probably thinking I am awesome. I was the best person in my studio growing up, and all of a sudden you're surrounded by people and you feel like a very small fish in a big pool. But I always like to think you never want to be the best person in the place that you're at. You always want to have people that you can look up to, because they'll just motivate you to be better. And truly the only person you need to compete against is yourself. Anyways, and then music school also gives you the opportunity to collaborate with other instrumentalists, with composers, and I have made friendships that have given me professional opportunities that I made in music school. So that's maybe why you might consider studying harp in college if you are studying in high school or junior high or even younger, and you're thinking about maybe having a career in music. So let's move on to the next slide. Okay, job options for harpists. This was one thing when I was going into college, thinking I want to be a music major, thinking, what can I even do? If there's some orchestra jobs, but they're few and far between. There's teaching, I knew that, but I'm what else are harpists doing? So these are some of the things that I've seen people in my studio or people that I know are doing, and there's also more than this. This is just kind of what I know. So there's obviously orchestra, teaching, gigging. I always tell people, you picked a really good instrument if you played the harp. When it comes to gigging, no one's hiring the piccolo player to walk them down the aisle when they're getting married. And so just by nature of playing the harp, it looks beautiful. It looks wow, you could play a glissando and people are impressed. So that's something that you could do if you're interested in chamber music. That's playing with other instrumentalists. It could be multiple harpists, it could be with violin or horn or anything else, which is some people are making a career doing that. Freelancing. I know there's a boy from my studio who graduated a couple years ago. His name's Ari Schwartz. He's really cool. He's in LA now, and is doing kind of just everything, innovating. So sometimes, like I said, you have to wear multiple hats. Sometimes that's, you just have to, make your career yourself. What are you interested in? Are you interested in jazz? Like, there's a very small, but really cool jazz harp community. That's something that I haven't really dabbled in, but maybe that's what you want to do. And obviously there's work for that because there's not a lot of people doing that. There's also arts administration. If you like playing in an orchestra, but you maybe don't want to, if you like the orchestra environment, I guess, and you don't want to play with the orchestra, you could maybe be a librarian. Or there's so many options for what you can do with a music degree that aren't just win an orchestra job, which is, I feel like, something that I've learned over my years in music schools. There really are plenty of opportunities. Sometimes you just have to find them, or you have to create your own. So that's a couple of job options for harpists, which, I hate going home sometimes and grandma's like, what are you going to do with your harp degree? It's like, no, I'll do something, and I'm having fun doing it. But it's not like it's not a career where you graduate college and you work a 9-to-5 for most people. Anyways, so let's move on. One more. Perfect. Okay, so the next thing is what school is right for me. There's a lot of different music schools out there, and sometimes it's difficult thinking, like, there's so many, which one should I go to? Here's a couple of my recommendations of questions you can ask yourself to kind of narrow down your pool. I'd say the biggest advice I have is to reach out for trial lessons for schools that you're interested in. Teachers are going to be very happy that you are, making an effort to get to know them, and this is a great way that you can actually ask them these questions and get as much information as you can, stuff that you might not be able to find on a school website. And then another piece of advice that I have is reach out to students that are currently or recently graduated from this program. They're going to give you the most unbiased opinions about, the studio environment and opportunities that they're getting. And I'd be happy to talk to anyone who's interested in Indiana University, and I think that people at different music schools are very happy to talk about their experiences. So here's a few questions that I wish I would have asked myself looking for a music school, is what are your future career goals? And then it's okay to not know this immediately. I've kind of evolved my career goals as I've done both my degrees at Indiana University. First of all, when I was going into my undergrad, so I put a little bit of my personal experience at the bottom of this slide, just kind of where I applied for my 3 different degrees that I have gotten or will be getting. So my undergrad, I actually applied to schools that my mom recommended. I didn't really know a lot about music schools. Again, I hadn't really done a lot of research, but my mom, who was a violinist, was like, oh, you should look into these schools. I've heard of them. They seem like they're good music schools. So I reached out and did trial lessons with teachers at Jacobs, USC, and Arizona. And I ended up really liking the teacher at Indiana University just from the lesson that we had together. So I flew out here and toured the school and was like, this seems like it could be a good fit for me. And I kind of just jumped into it, and it ended up being a great option. But I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do with harp, other than, I liked doing competitions and it's fun to, move across the country. I was very scared to do that too, which is another thing. Where do you want to live? That's a very important thing to ask yourself when you're going to music school. Sometimes, music schools can be in big cities, they can be in small cities, they can be close to home, they can be far away, which is definitely something to consider when you are picking a school that's right for you. What kind of teacher do you want? There's a wide range of music teachers. Some teachers are a little more like welcoming, and some are a little bit more harsh, and both can be good. Depending if you want a teacher that's going to, make your plan for you, say, okay, in your lesson, we're going to work on this piece. This next week, I want it memorized. or if they're more free, saying, what are your goals, and you make your own plan, is something definitely important to me. And then, do you want a university or a conservatory experience? There are some music schools. A conservatory, if you don't know, is a school that is just a music school, and it might not be on a university campus, but then they also have music schools that are located at larger universities. Think like Indiana University or USC or Michigan. All have really great and prestigious music schools, but you can take classes in other fields. So something that's interesting about Indiana University is they have a degree where you can study music, but you can get an outside field in literally anything else. Which, when I was kind of transitioning from being a biology major to a harp major, I actually thought maybe I'll do that. I'll study both. It's great for some people at Jacobs. They really like studying that because maybe they really love playing their instrument and they want to play it in college, but maybe they're looking for a career in something else, or maybe they're thinking, I don't really know if I want a music career, so I'll study something else just in case, and then they kind of pick maybe for graduate study. But that's another thing that you can find out about the music schools you're applying to, is if you're interested in something else besides music, you might be able to actually do both, which is really cool. What kind of scholarships do the schools offer? This is very important. It's nice to not graduate with hundreds and thousands of dollars in student debt. And there's so many scholarships available at these music schools. They can be merit-based, they can be needs-based, they can be like teaching positions. You can be an RA, which is like a resident assistant in the dorms. There's so many ways that you can get money to go to school. Another thing that I think is important is how much ensemble experience do they offer. Again, like I said, coming into undergrad, I didn't have a lot of ensemble experience, and I was really interested in the large music school that Jacobs had to offer, because I knew that I'd have a lot of experience playing in bands and orchestras. And I came into college not knowing that, and I won a principal position during my time at Jacobs, and I've been making the finals for some other orchestra auditions that I've been taking, which is great. It's awesome. Like, I would not have these opportunities now if I didn't come to this school. And then another thing that I think is often not thought of is how readily available is your teacher, and does this align with your needs as a student? Some teachers are younger, they're still in the prime of their own professional careers, and that's not a bad thing. They might still have time to teach you, but some teachers they might teach at multiple schools. They might only be at your school maybe one day a week, and that's when they do all of their lessons. And for some people, that's fine. If once a week they meet with their teacher, and then they can stay motivated and plan for themselves. But some students, especially me, when I was coming in as an undergrad, I really appreciated my teacher. Was not like she didn't have a career outside of teaching by the time that she was my teacher. She was also a little bit older. So that aligned with my needs, because she was on campus every day. If I had questions, I could go to her any day. So that was really convenient for me now, but that just depends on what you need. So a little bit more about my personal experience. Okay, yes. So for my master's, I knew I wanted to go to save money for my master's. And I thought, it's nice to go to school for free, so I'm going to apply to these places and see what kind of scholarships they offer. I like to say, when you're picking, like, how many schools should I apply to? Make a broad list of every school you can see yourself going to, and then narrow it down based on, location and teacher and financial aid available and kind of what you want. I wouldn't recommend applying to every single school that you can. You might get burnt out. Sometimes you have to travel to these schools to audition for them. And so I don't know if I have like a ballpark number, but if you're pushing like 8 schools, you might want to reevaluate why you're applying. I would only apply to schools that you can really see yourself going to. And then post-grad, so after I finished my master's, I knew I wanted to take kind of the orchestra audition route. And I had been following Catherine Ciocci on social media and kind of all the things that she posted about the conservatory. I was like, this seems like where I want to go. And so it was actually the only place I applied this year, because it was the only place I really saw myself going. I would not recommend only applying to one school either for your undergrad or for your postgrad. Had I not gotten into this school, I don't think I just wouldn't have done school this year. So that is a little bit more about picking what school is right for you. Okay, so moving on. Here's a few things that I think I did right in my undergrad and my master's, and the next slide will be things that I wish I knew. Because obviously, every person's journey is different. There's going to be things that you're like, oh, I wish I would have known that. Maybe that will be helpful from you, but you'll also learn just as you go. As you're, even if you're in high school, there's going to be things you wish you knew and things that you feel like you're doing right. Okay, so a few things that I think I did right during my undergrad and my master's is connections and networking. IU had a really, really great harp legacy because of Suzanne McDonald. So a lot of her students are teaching around the country now, and they would come back for master classes and for performances, and then for the USA International Harp Competition. So through that, I was able to meet a lot of working professionals in the United States and even abroad. Some of the people that came in, like Naoko Yoshino was here, Emmanuel Cezanne, Liz Haynen, Sivan, just amazing, amazing harpists. And so take advantage of the opportunities that your school has. I tried to play for every single guest artist that came and did a master class just by signing up. Let's see, sorry. Wait, okay. Which I think is very important, take advantage of those opportunities. I also did competitions, like I mentioned, the USA International Harp Competition, very prestigious competition, amazing experience, but I really loved meeting people from around the world at that competition. I think that just as important as playing was making those friends that, now I have harp friends all around the country and all around the world, which I definitely wouldn't have unless I did this competition. So no matter how well you do at these competitions, it's a great experience to get to know people. Another thing I think I did right was something that was teaching. I started teaching during my master's, and I actually taught harp elective students, which I wanted to mention because if you don't want to study harp in college, but you might still want to play, some universities actually offer elective harp lessons. So some of my students were complete beginners studying. Some of them were studying music, some of them were studying ballet. I had an environmental science major, but that's something that was really cool is they had access to harp rooms and lessons when, harp as an instrument, it's a little bit less accessible than some other instruments. So they had access to all of the harps, which was really cool. So if you're thinking, I don't want to study harp in college, maybe you can still take lessons. I had other students who had taken harp before. So that was really cool. What else did okay, college experience. I think that it is very important as a music major to make sure that you separate your identity as a musician from being a person. I always like to say, I am a person that plays the harp. If I do bad in a competition, if I don't get an opportunity, that is not a reflection of my worth as a person, which is something that I think music school can be bad at. I think there's a lot of people in music school that think, if my worth is my instrument, and it totally isn't. Your worth is never the instrument you play. And so for me, I really wanted to have a good time in music school because I want to love music. I don't want to just do it because I feel like I have to. So I picked up quite a few new hobbies. I started running, I started rock climbing, all independent of being in music school. And sometimes, on the weekends, I would take a day off from practicing because me and my friends were going to do something. And I think that's fine, I feel like I'm still as great of a harpist as I could be while I still tried to prioritize friendships. Moving on from rejections. This is something that even if you think of your favorite harpists ever, or your favorite athletes or everything, they probably, you probably look at them thinking wow, they've probably never made a mistake. They've probably gotten every opportunity they've ever gone for, and that's just not true. One bad performance or competition does not define your worth or ability. Like I said, I applied for AHS 2 times before I ever got in. I've taken multiple orchestra auditions. I took the Indianapolis Symphony one 2 years ago. I didn't even make it past the first round. And just thinking, everything I'm doing is giving me experience. I learned a lot from doing these auditions that have helped me in further auditions, but then you might make the finals for one audition and you might not even pass the first round for the next, and you just have to be okay with that. Keep trying for things, because the more no's you get, you will also get yeses too, which I think is important to know. And then adapting your future goals. Maybe you are a high school student thinking like, oh, maybe I want to study harp, but I don't know what I want to do. And I think that's completely normal. I think that nobody really knows what they want to do. And as I was in music school, I had opportunities and experiences that kind of showed me and put me in a direction, moving towards what I want to do. So I didn't know I liked teaching before I started college. I didn't know that I loved playing in orchestra. And then opera was another interesting thing. For me in my undergrad, I had never really listened to opera music, but I got assigned to play the Hansel and Gretel opera in like my second year of my undergrad, and like I just thought it was the most magical thing ever, being in the pit. And then I got to play like my first Nutcracker, which I'm like, oh, this is so fun. I love doing this. So say yes to opportunities that might scare you or might be different, because you never know what you might like. I've also played, done compositions by composers that I haven't liked, and that's good too. You find what you like and what you don't like, which can help you figure out what you want to do in your future. So those are a few of the things that I think I did right in my undergrad, and let's move to the next slide so I can tell you what I wish I would have known. Don't be afraid to reach out. I remember my first year in undergrad, there were people that were like, oh, I'm doing this gig and I have this to do on Easter and this to do on Christmas. I'm like, how are you guys getting these gigs? Like, I wish I was doing this. And I learned later that they got these gigs just because they got asked to do it, and then they get asked back the next year, and then they get asked back the next year. Or the longer you're in a place, the more your name can kind of get out there, and then people just will reach out to you. So I wish I would have done that maybe my first year of my undergrad, kind of reaching out to people or asking my peers, like, where are you getting gigs? And then maybe sending my resume to these people that are hiring and saying like, hey, like, I'm in the area, I would love to, to do anything for you, and call me if you need a harpist. Because a lot of the times, as long as you're professional and you show up and you do a good job, they're gonna ask for you again, and then they'll recommend you to other people. Another thing I wish I would have done was plan my repertoire a little bit better. During my, I learned a lot of repertoire over the past 5 years. I did a lot of competitions. I mean, I did AHS, I think, at least twice, maybe even 3 times during my time here, and then the USA competition. So a lot of solo repertoire, but something that I wish I would have done is started learning orchestral excerpts and like kind of like the big four, Mozart, Handel, Debussy, and Ravel. A little bit earlier on, I had learned Handel before coming to college, and so now when I see that on an audition list, and I'm like, oh, it's fine, I don't really have to, just a little bit of tuning up. But I actually learned both Debussy and Ravel this past year, and I learned Mozart only a little bit ago. But that's trial and error. That's something I wish I would have known. It's something I'd recommend to any student that's like, oh, I want to maybe try out for orchestra auditions, because when you see a long list of rep, you're like, oh, how do I learn 40 excerpts, but just a little bit here, a little bit there, which is another reason I'm glad I started taking orchestra auditions in my undergrad and in my grad. Even the times that I did in advance, I learned a lot of these excerpts. And then when you get the next list, you're like, I already know these ones, and it's a lot better. But there are perks to learning pieces later on. I think had I had learned Debussy in high school, I probably would have had to do a lot of like fixing up now, as opposed to, but it still feels fresh. So that's something that I wish I'll be looking forward to, in another year when those feel like super solid. And then stop comparing yourself to others is so much easier said than done. I think it's super easy when you're in an environment with everyone is a harpist and you're listening to each other all the time. It's really hard not to compare yourself. But I think that, at least for me personally, comparing myself to who I once was is the best way to make improvements. To say, like, wow, 1 year ago I couldn't do this and now I can. Or even I think it's very important to be excited for your friends when they do succeed. If your friend wins a job or if they get a cool opportunity, support them, because like I said, being a nice person will take you very far in the music community, and you never know, like, if your friends might have opportunities that they can give to you too. And not that you want to make friends so that you can get, opportunities. But I do think that it is very beneficial. Okay, so moving on. One more. Okay, now I'm done with school, kind of. I'm done with my master's. I'm moving to San Francisco. What's next for me? So through my experience of being a music student, I learned that I love orchestra. So I'll start taking auditions. I'll be spending this summer at Aspen Summer Music Festival, which I'm really excited about. It's actually my first summer festival I've ever done. That's one thing. I came to music school and everyone was like, what summer festivals have you done? I was like, oh, I didn't know I was supposed to be doing summer festivals. And I don't think you need to. You don't need to do competitions. You don't need to do summer festivals to succeed, but they are options. And so this is the first year that I was like, maybe I'll spend my summer. I also like to spend my summer sometimes at home. I think it's nice to have, I call it like a work-life balance where, it's okay to take a week off. It's okay to take a month off of playing harp if you need that every once in a while. But I'm excited to, Catherine will be at Aspen, which is one of the reasons I wanted to go there to start studying with her a little bit before I even moved to San Francisco. So I'm super excited about that. And then another thing that I learned that I love in my undergrad is collabing with other musicians. So this is my new horn and harp duo. We are still unnamed, but my friend and I, who's actually my partner, but we just did a recital that was a bunch of works that were by underrepresented composers, that are works originally not for horn and harp. Maybe like one was for synthesizer, one was for piano, one was for a couple piano pieces, but just taking music that is already exists and then bringing it into a new medium, which is something that I didn't know that I did. I've been doing arranging, which is another thing that I didn't do before coming to college, and is something that I've really enjoyed doing. So that's another thing that, like I mentioned, chamber music being a career option. We did one recital and it was really well received. So we're thinking maybe we'll do an album and see how that goes. A lot of music careers, like, let's try this and see how it goes and pivot if you need to. So I hope that answers questions about what it's like to study music in college. And if you have any other questions, I'd love to know them, because I think my last slide is just a questions slide.
Let's see. Questions. That was such great material.
Thank
I loved
you.
what you had to say, and I could like resonate with all of it. So I'm really glad that you were able to go through that. But yeah, let me give you some questions that I think popped up, and we'll see if any future parents and people have questions too. But let's see. How do you think studying music changed you as a person?
It's a great question. How did it change me as a person? I definitely feel like studying music made me realize like how capable I am. I think that I'm a little bit afraid sometimes, to think like, oh, I'm a good harpist, or I have experience, or I know what I'm doing. And I think that as I've evolved through music school, I'm a lot more confident in my abilities. I think it's okay to say like, I can play well because I've put in so much time and effort into doing this, or I know a lot about XYZ. For me, I feel like I know a lot about how competitions work, or I know a lot about orchestral excerpts. And I think that hopefully will help me making a career, kind of being able to be confident in myself, being like, okay, like, I can do this, or I can try this. And if it fails, that's okay, because then I can try something else. So I think that definitely has evolved in my time at music school. Because when I started, everyone, I think it's very common to feel inadequate as a musician all the time, which I think is so sad. It's a musician stereotype, but trust your training. Trust that you put a lot of work into making art, which is music. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a great answer. What skills did you gain beyond harp? You might have touched about this, but like, especially people, high school students, parents who are waffling between science and harp, like, what are some of your key takeaways outside of harp that you gained besides confidence?
Yeah.
In addition to confidence.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. What did I learn besides harp? I think I learned a lot about what makes me happy and how I want to have a work-life balance. Harp is one thing that I do, but it's not the only thing I do. It's not my only skill. And so I think I really enjoyed being in music school, having the time to kind of decide what I like to do, decide what my hobbies are, and like teaching. I know that's kind of related to harp, but I really like teaching. And What else have I learned? There's so much more. Um, have I learned in music school? I've learned to be independent. That's something that I remember being very afraid of moving. I had only been out of the house for 1 year I went to a college that was like 20 minutes away from my house. And so I've learned, how to budget, how to make food. I have like a little recipe book now. I've learned how to, you know, like talk to people. I think I'm a lot better like making professional connections. Um, I one of the connections that I made, I don't know if I mentioned this already, was I've been able to sub with the Indianapolis Symphony,
Right.
um, just because of a connection I had with the harpist there. So I think that networking, definitely I've improved that skill. I mean, it is related to harp, but in all aspects of my life, I feel more like a real adult after going to music school and kind of getting over the like, oh, like I'm not good enough. It's like, okay, yes, you are. Like, be
Right.
confident, be present, put yourself out there, make connections.
Yeah, I liked what you said about making your own pathway or just like pushing yourself. That's definitely a theme I've seen with harp that a lot of times you have to like make your own path.
Right,
And that's something that I teach students all the time that like if your high school doesn't have a harp or if your high school teacher
yeah,
doesn't have a harp, like you have to advocate for yourself over and over again. And I feel
right.
like that's a really important skill we come away with.
Yeah, like don't let people walk all over you, I
Yep.
think it's you have to practice it,
Yes.
I think that it's easy to be a people pleaser. You always want to say yes to everything, but learning how to say no, learning how to say like I have enough on my plate, I cannot do this, or
Right.
like this doesn't work for me, especially when you're talking about like making your own contracts. I know we talked about this a little bit, but like, if you get asked to do a gig and they totally like undercut you on the price, to be like, no, like I'm not going to work, I'm not going to do this gig unless you pay me correctly, or like you pay me with the skills that I have are worth this much, to be able to
Yeah.
say no to that. Um,
Yeah, not to underestimate the that you're a professional and you're a skilled artist.
right.
It's not just a hobby for all of
Yeah,
us in the professional world.
absolutely. I think that, if you go to music school and you have a degree, you are a professional harpist, and yes, you can compare yourself and oh, I'm not as good as this, but who cares? You are a professional. You have done the work. You've gotten the degree. Like, it doesn't matter what school you've gotten it from. Like, you are worth, uh, like you're worthy because you have done
Yes, put
this,
the time in. Okay, so if you had like a high school student or someone who was on the fence, what signs would you look for that they might actually want to consider a degree in music?
Yeah.
I did like how you started in science and then you changed. I thought that story was very relevant,
Hmm.
because I do think it's important to prioritize security and finances in a future. But
Yeah.
you touched on it a little bit, moving from science to music, mostly for the love of it. But if you were looking at someone else's life, like how would you advise them to choose?
That's a great question. I think that, I mean, if you're looking for the most secure job ever, then maybe music is not for you. It's not as easy as, being like, not that being an accountant is easy or anything, but it's not as
Secure.
maybe clear, or there's not really like a one path fits all. And I think that, at least for me, I thought about, if I'm going to have a career for 40 years and I'm going to have to wake up every day and do something to make money and provide for myself, I thought, like, what would make me feel fulfilled? And I thought, for me, it's music. It's what I love. It's what I feel like I contribute to the world. And so then when I thought about that, I'm like, okay, if I want to have a career as a harpist, then in the morning when I wake up and I'm like, oh, like I have so much to do today, or like I have so many students and I have to do a gig tonight, which means I don't have my Friday night. It won't feel, I mean, work should feel like work, but at the same time, I'm like, that's what I want to do. I want to be busy with orchestra, I want to be busy with students. And if that doesn't sound fun for you, that's okay. There's so many careers that you can have. If you want to play music because you love it, but you don't want it to be your career, that's okay too. It's okay to, you know, play harp as a hobby. If that's just something that you've loved to do, I think that's okay. I wouldn't, if unless you really want to do it, there's other options out there for you. So, and then also you could try it for a year. Like me, I transferred. I started college and did something, and then I transferred. You could do the same thing. You could even start as a harpist and then do something else. Or you could start and do something else and say, does this make me feel fulfilled? Do I love doing this? And then you can transfer. I'm a big proponent of like you're never stuck somewhere. If you want to change something up, then do it. But yeah, that's probably my advice
Right.
for people considering music. Like really decide like what do you want to do for the rest of your life? Does waking up every day in the morning and being a musician make you excited? Then go for it. And maybe you'll have to forge your own path. There's jobs today in music that weren't around 20 years ago because of technology. So you never know like what options are out there for you, and it doesn't have to be traditional. It could, I mean, there's, if maybe you like, I don't know, for some people they really like musical theater and there's Broadway pits, or maybe you don't like performing because you have too much anxiety or it makes you too stressed, and there's a place for you in music still too. That's probably my advice.
Nice. What is, if you can remember, what is one of your favorite things a teacher's ever told you, or a couple favorite things your teachers have ever told you?
Ooh. Um, that's a great question. Thinking. Um, I don't know. I don't think I've mentioned this, but so my professor, she teaches the harp majors, but we also have an orchestra rep class that's taught by Sarah Bolin.
Oh,
She
nice.
zooms in every week, and it's been so wonderful working with her.
So
That's
exciting.
another, my love of orchestra has also come from her. But when I played Nutcracker, I sent her like a recording of like me playing the cadenza, and she's like, that's exactly right, like that's exactly how it should be. And to come from someone, I'm like, I literally learned from your books. Like it just makes you feel so like, I'm like, oh, thank you. Like to have a teacher believe in you, I think is very important. If you have a music teacher that doesn't believe in you, you're in the wrong studio. um, because I feel like encouragement from teachers has helped me be more confident in myself too, especially coming from a teacher that I respect, like Sarah Boland. So that was really that very meaningful to me. What else have the teachers said to me that's um, I had so one of the teachers that came for a master class was Liz Haynen, who teaches at Curtis and it plays in Philadelphia. But I asked her to write me a letter of recommendation one time, and she wrote something in it that was like, "I think this student can make it as a harpist," like, which also just means so much, like to have a teacher thinking like you have the potential to do this. If you're not finding it, like the success you want right now, or if you're like, oh, I wish I could do this, to have a teacher that's like, well, then keep trying and you will, it's very encouraging. So
Yeah.
that's what comes to mind. I'm sure there's more, but
No, that those are really important moments for sure. Definitely. Now, you don't have to, but I think it's always fun to share like a fun moment, a failed moment, an embarrassing moment, because we all have them in music. So if you think of like a student in like high school and you want to share one of your, well, that didn't go according to plan moments, it really helps them recover and they'll remember your story when
yeah.
they too fail. If you have anything you want to share that's not too embarrassing for YouTube, it's
Oh, of course. One that comes to mind immediately is my first year here. I won the concerto competition, and so I played like Pierney's Concertstück
oh
with
yeah.
one of the orchestras. Amazing experience. But like I said, I think I was still playing with the band at that time. I really hadn't played with the orchestra, so I go in for the first rehearsal, and we like play through it once, and it goes like pretty well. And then I think the conductor said, all right, like tutti, which meant that he wanted everyone to start at the beginning of the piece again. And I just like didn't know what that meant at the time. And for some reason in my mind, I was like, oh, he wants me to leave. Like I can leave. So I'm like packing up my stuff, and he like turns to me and he's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, like do you still want me to play?" He's like, "Yeah, like at the beginning." And I remember being very embarrassed because I was like, "Oh, I didn't even know what that meant." But then I learned, Then I learned, and I haven't made that mistake again. So that's okay. I've had so many performances where, I've had memory slips. I've played wrong pedals. I've played wrong notes, like you name it, and I've done it. I've had great performances too, but especially in high school. I remember the first time I ever auditioned to like for like a youth concerto competition with like a local symphony. I like had a memory slip and I couldn't even recover from it. I was playing Handel, and it was like I must have been maybe 14, and I just didn't know about like practicing your performances beforehand and playing for people. And I thought I was ready because, I'd never played it when I was nervous, and I totally messed up. And, they didn't pick me, and I learned from that. I thought, okay, like that didn't work. What do I need to do? And I learned about like practice performances and playing for people. And then, I won a couple of other ones, which is great. I think that sometimes the more no's you get, the more yeses you'll also get. If you keep trying for
Yeah.
things, it'll work out. You might get a lot of
Absolutely.
rejections, but then you'll succeed as well.
Exactly. So we skills that you've mentioned that we learn besides music: perseverance,
Sure.
rejection, how to recovery
Right.
skills. I mean, I feel like these are hard skills to acquire
Absolutely.
outside music.
I think that,
Um, a
but
couple more questions I was thinking about. Okay, so if you were to talk, your mother was a professional musician.
yeah.
So what advice would you tell people who have no music background, or like how can they support their student? Maybe something that they should know going on. Yeah, talk to the
Right.
parents in the room.
Yeah, I think that my mom honestly was learning a lot about the harp world as this at the same time that I was. The first time we went and saw AHS one time when it was in Utah. Long, long time ago. I don't even remember how, but I wasn't competing that year, and we listened to like the young professionals division. That's when it was like Noel Wan and Catherine
Oh yeah,
Siochi.
yeah, that
I,
year.
I like listened to them play for the first time, and I was like, wow, like I didn't even know that harp could sound like this. And my
Yes.
mom was also like, oh, like wow, like these people are amazing. Like let me do some research on them. So I think that, encouraging your student to take opportunities, and then being okay not knowing as a parent, being like, oh, I don't really know a lot about the harp world. There's things you can do to learn. You can watch people online. You can, go to local competitions. What else can you do to learn about? You can ask your student's teacher. They might know about things. But I think it's okay to not know everything as a music teacher. I mean, as a parent of a music student, you don't need to know everything. And you can kind of learn as you go. If there's something that you really wish you knew, like, who are the best harpists in the world? Like a quick Google search, and you can listen to people, and or like great music schools. You can look that up online. You can ask your student's teacher, and you can even, as a parent, if your student is like, oh, like I don't know, you can help them send emails to, my mom definitely during my undergrad, she came with me to all of my college auditions, which was so nice. I mean, for my master's and for my postmaster's, I wanted to go by myself, but I think I would have been a lot more afraid without my mom there. My mom comes, she loves harp now. She's a very much a harp mom, but she loves coming to competitions with me, which is great. It's nice to like have someone in the warm-up room with me. And I'm like, oh, like, can I do it? It's like, okay, yes, I can. And she's here for less things now, but I think my mom is very good at being, if I have a concert that she can't come to, but there's a live stream, she'll always watch it. And that's super encouraging for me to know that my parents are supportive of my dreams. I think that sometimes parents that aren't musicians are like, well, why would you want to study music? Like you could do this and this and this. But if that's what your kid is passionate about, like encourage them to do that. And kind of maybe see if you can see the world through their eyes. Ask them, maybe your student knows more than you do. But I don't know. That's probably my advice as a
Yeah.
parent
Did
of
they did it did they learn and enjoy moving the harp with you? Like
That's funny. My dad, actually, I didn't even know how to change a harp string until I moved to college. My dad would always like move my harp for me, put it in the back of the car, and wheel it
what?
around for me, which is so nice. I didn't know to thank him for that until I had to start doing it by myself. But yeah, my mom would change my harp strings for me. And then eventually I learned how to do that for myself. But it was great. My mom found my music teacher as well. I wouldn't have known who to study with. I switched music teachers after, so I started when I was 4 and quit, and then got a new teacher, who was definitely one of the reasons that I stuck with it. Sometimes my mom would come to my lessons with me, especially when I was younger, which was nice. She would take notes, so that when I was practicing, she could say like, "Oh, like your teacher said to do this." And I think that if you are a parent who is not a musician, you can still learn. My mom was never a harpist. She sometimes would try. She'd be like, "Oh, I feel like I've been to so many lessons. I feel like I should be able to play this." But you don't have to. You don't have to do the exact same thing to show your student that you care.
Yeah, that's great. I can't think of any other questions right now, but like I think that everything that you've shared has been super valuable. I mean, do you have anything else, or do you feel like
No,
you shared
yeah,
everything?
I feel like that's what I have. If you want to reach out to me, if you have questions, or if you want to
Yeah,
reach
I
out to
like
my
your
Instagram
emails
and
there.
my
Yeah.
website, here, like please reach out to me. I should have put my email too. It's also juliajohnsonharp@gmail.com.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll send